89.7 Power FM. We got a special guest on the morning show this morning. It is Josh Clifton, lead singer from Ravenhill. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, man. I got my coffee. I'm in Seattle right now, and I'm making it. I might have to take one of those Power FM naps.
Yep.
Like a power nap. It's a Power FM nap.
I like that phrase.
I'm going to take power naps every day now.
You got the FM in there.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a Power FM nap.
We need a nickel every time somebody sleeps for 10 minutes.
You should make those, what are those things that older people that are sensitive to light put over their eyes even while they're sleeping?
Oh, you just go to those sleep masks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Hey,
sleep masks.
Careful what you say about that. My wife uses a sleep mask because she has to sleep during the day.
Well, that's probably why.
She can use a Power FM sleep mask then.
There we go.
Boom.
All right, now before we launch into questions about your music, we wanted to get you to weigh in on a very important debate, apparently. Apparently, this has been waging for a while. The question is a hot dog a sandwich?
No.
No?
No, I would say no. It's a baby sandwich, maybe? I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
It's like a sandwich cousin. That was my theory.
Yeah, that's a good thing. It's not an actual sandwich.
Okay.
It's in the sandwich family. It weasels its way in somehow.
See, that was my thoughts. And then Taylor, he agreed with me, but he took this question one step further.
And I would say, what about
man.
hamburgers? Are those sandwiches?
Yes.
Yes? See?
Maybe it's a dude thing.
Hamburgers are sandwiches.
I would still say that it's a cousin. Maybe like the hamburger would be a first cousin and the hot dog would be like a second cousin. But if you're ordering off a menu, if you walk in a Subway, they don't have hamburgers, they have sandwiches.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I think it all refers to, like, what's your favorite type of sandwich, but individually. Because if your favorite sandwich is a hamburger, then that might be what you base all these other questions on. Maybe you don't think of peanut butter and jelly, even though it's a sandwich in it, is necessarily a sandwich. You think it has to be hot or greasy or whatever. So, Kindel, what's your favorite sandwich?
I don't know. Probably a sub sandwich stacked with lots of meat and cheese and veggies.
Okay.
So like a traditional, like, sandwich. Well, I say traditional, but I guess that would be like a submarine sandwich. So I guess it does depend on, your definition of sandwich, maybe.
Taylor, what's your favorite kind of sandwich? I just turned this around on you guys a minute.
He's interviewing us now.
No, this is good. My favorite sandwich is a double cheeseburger.
That's not a sandwich, though. See, that's what I'm saying. If someone was to ask you what your favorite sandwich was, that would be your first go-to response was a double cheeseburger.
It is now.
It is now, but it wasn't before. You're just trying to prove a point that didn't exist before.
Oh, man.
Thanks so much for ganging up on me, boys.
Josh, I appreciate you. We can stop now as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Well, you're ahead, Taylor.
Okay. I guess you had a question.
So
didn't
getting
you,
into let's actually get into the interview part of the interview.
You guys actually had me on here because I have a vast array of knowledge of sandwiches.
Yes, you are the sandwich expert, and that's why we thought. I mean, of all the people, let's get Josh from Ravenhill to come on because he is the sandwich expert.
Awesome.
Well, by the way, my favorite sandwich is any sandwich from, there's a place in Pittsburgh called Permane Brothers.
Okay.
That would be, anytime you're in Pittsburgh, go to Permane Brothers.
I will do that next time I'm in Pittsburgh.
Well, we have been playing you guys' song Mercy off of the Soul album. Can you tell us a little bit of kind of the behind the song story?
Honestly, that song is basically the story of Ravenhill because it was the first song we wrote. We started like 5 years ago, and I kind of thought that I was going to not do music full-time anymore. I had gotten married, and a year or so had passed, and we found out we were pregnant with our first child, and I thought, well, I'm just going to be a dad, but I always said I was going to continue to make music, whether I was playing or traveling or whatever. So I remember sitting in my front room with a couple friends, and one of them being David from Run Kid Run. I showed him some songs, and that was one of them. And the song itself, as far as content, if you listen to the entire record, you'll find that sometimes the subject matter can be a little dark. And I think it's because I put my worst fears or things that I feel as a Christian that maybe I struggle with or I'm terrified of struggling with them, that I make a song about it. So it's maybe something I can deal with. And that one's just a song about how I know I always fall short of what it means to be a Christian, but finding grace and finding that God is going to continue to love me. It doesn't give me a license to sin, but definitely gives me grace that when I do sin, I don't feel condemned, but I learn from it and move on.
I love that. A lot of people were really digging this song, and for me, I loved that we started playing the song because it has a really kind of a Southern rock feel to it, and I grew up listening to a lot of Southern rock. So I guess my question would be, did what you listened to growing up influence the kind of sound that you did with Ravenhill?
To be honest with you, it's kind of funny. I grew up in a Christian home. My mom was raised in an orphanage in Mexico, and when she got married to my father, who was a pastor, when she came to the States, she was kind of, I don't know, sheltered and naive. So some of even the harder Christian rock I wasn't allowed to listen to. At the time, someone had given me New Thing by DC Talk, and that was even too hard. She couldn't understand the rapping, so I couldn't listen to it. So I grew up, honestly, on contemporary Christian music. So if anyone's ever seen Ravenhill or heard our band, if you can picture me having a buzz cut, teenage kid singing Carmen in front of church.
There you go.
I mean, like his entire catalog.
Yeah.
But then I was also allowed to listen to oldies. And that's kind of, I think, where I got as a mix of that gospel, because I listened to a lot of old gospel too, because I was allowed to. My two biggest musical influences in my life had to be Ray Charles, number one, and Johnny Cash, number two. And I think when you mix the gospel with those two, and then you throw in like Led Zeppelin, I mean, that it's kind of game over as far as like musical influences. And those are kind of cliche influences, but I love radio and music so much that I ended up in high school interning at an oldies radio station. So I just really dove into oldies radio stations. So I'm kind of an old soul. Like all my favorite bands are dead or dying, and I'm trying to keep them alive through maybe art and so their influence on us and stuff like that.
That's what probably drew me to you. I'm also an old soul, and all of my favorite musicians are dead or dying as well. So I'm glad you're keeping it alive.
It was interesting that you said you listen to so much gospel, because when I listen to your music, especially in your lyrics, they read like gospel songs. And so I was wondering, was that a deliberate decision of I want to harken back to that era, or was it just that it was so much a part of your musical identity that it just happened that way?
I think a lot of time, especially at a young age, we like chase things that are popular. So before Ravenhill, I was in like a pop punk band, and then I was in an emo band, and then like I grew up listening to a band called Save the Day, so I was in a band very much like that, or Further Seems Forever and Under Road. I enjoyed it, and I think those bands are good, but some people never find what they're really supposed to do, or maybe their niche or whatever creatively. And I found that whenever I turned around 26 years old, I found out, oh, maybe this is the style of music I'm supposed to be doing. So to answer your question, I just took the most long way to answer your question. But I think it was just a part of me. I just didn't know it. I mean, like I knew I liked it, but I thought, why in the world would they want to hear a white guy sing soul music?
But I think it's really refreshing, because I listen and it does. It's got that rawness. It sounds classic without sounding dated.
Thank you. That means a lot. There are plenty of songs we've written that would not fit in the vein of Ravenhill, and I sometimes have to push those aside because I'm just writing whatever. And luckily I have 4 talented musicians in my band with me that I can bounce these ideas off of, and if I write 20 songs in a couple months, they can say, well, these songs sound like Ravenhill songs, and those other songs are like these parts that maybe we can use for other Ravenhill songs. It's good to have a good team around you that you trust, that will tell you and love, because I mean, you guys deal with artists all the time. We can be sensitive, and so finding people you can trust that can tell you the way you can receive it, because we're all working to make the best possible music and the best version of Ravenhill we can.
We have recently added to the Power FM playlist one of your label mates, Fever Fever, also on Slow Speak Records. And I know a few weeks back, I saw Fever Fever post a picture of one of their members, his arm in like a sling or something, and he said the people they were touring with broke his arm.
Cough, cough. I feel like that was one of those asterisk, cough, cough, asterisk type of posts.
I was like, I think Ravenhill's on tour with these guys right now, so...
That was your fault, yeah?
By association.
By association.
By multiple ways being associated to them. So we were in San Francisco, and a lot of the Slow Speak crew, we were doing several shows together, and we were in San Francisco, and if you've ever seen a picture of Fever Fever. There's a guy named Wes in the band. He's like 6'5". In my head, he's 6'8". But he's just like a strong dude. I feel like he was raised on a farm probably. I know he owns a farm now. And he just threw us around. And him and Drew go, let's play basketball. We were passing by a basketball court. And Ravenhill, me and my brother who's in the band, we grew up playing sports. And we thought, we're going to take these guys. So it was kind of personal, like Ravenhill versus Fever Fever. We had 2 local kids on each team. And we were playing, and it got pretty physical, and my brother and Drew's lead singer went up for a rebound or something, and my brother boxed him out, took his legs out from under him. He landed straight on his elbow.
Oh, no.
And broke his elbow. And what's crazy is we were meeting up with the head of our label, James, at that show that night, and we made Brady, my brother, have to tell him.
Did you pull straws? You were like, nose goes.
Yeah, so,
man.
I love those dudes, but they beat us. That's been bothering me ever since. They were good, though. They were a lot better than I thought they were going to be.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it helps when you're 6'5".
Yeah, it does. It does. But that sounds like an excuse. They were just better than this that day. I feel like it's the end of a basketball game, and you're interviewing me, and we lost, and I'm like, it just wasn't our day. You know, they just played better than us tonight. He ended up canceling that night, but the next day in L.A., he played with a broken arm. He played guitar, and it was the guitar that he strums with that he broke at the elbow.
Ooh.
So he did great.
Powered through, man. Yep. That is commitment to your craft.
That's impressive.
You should have him on here and tell him I said some great things about him.
I will. I'll talk you up to him so he goes easy on you the next time. Okay, so Soul, your new album, I remember seeing this on a release date for months, and I feel like there's some sort of saga about how you did a crowdfunding campaign, and then you got signed to Slow Speak, and then there was like almost a year gap before it went. Am I remembering this correctly?
You are remembering it very correctly, and it was longer than a year.
Okay.
Honestly. To a lot of people, it probably felt like a year, maybe 2, because it was just shy of 2 years.
Okay.
But to us, it felt like 5 years.
I was going to ask how hard that is to sit and wait for your baby.
Yeah, it was. We did a crowdfunding for this record, and we didn't really know what to expect, and we ended up getting about $5,000 more than we had asked for. And we thought, okay, well, we get compared to Jack White and the Racketeers and older bands and everyone that knows a lot more about music than we do. They were always telling us, like, you should record the tape and you should put out a vinyl and all that stuff. And we were like, yeah, that'd be awesome. But we've never had money before, you know? So we messaged a lot of people that have worked with those people we've been compared to. And a guy named Mitch Dane came and saw us. He's worked with the Black Keys and Jack White before, and he even did some of Jars of Clay's records and Caveman's Call records. And he loved us, and he wanted to put us to tape. And so we made that record 2.5 years ago, February. We held on to it, and we were going to put it out ourselves, and then labels started getting interested. Some would be big labels, some would be smaller labels, and Ravenhill's so special to us and myself that I was scared to death of just signing to anyone. And we live in a day and age where you can survive without a record label. But man, if you can find the right record label, it's perfect. And I was scared that any anointing that was on this band would leave the moment I signed to the wrong labels. We were talking to this label, and usually that takes about 6 months whenever you're talking, and then nothing happened with that, and we thought, okay, well, we'll put it out ourselves. And then we talked to another label, and then another 6 months, 4 to 6 months would pass. Eventually becoming friends with Davey and getting to know him and his heart and knowing Slow Speak. And I live in the same town as Davey does that runs the label. We ended up figuring out a way to put out the record together. So it came out March of this year.
Yeah, I'd been waiting for it because I kept on seeing the date kind of jump back a little bit further and jump back a little bit further. And I was like, oh man, come on.
You just kept Taylor on the edge of his seat for like 2 years. When he sits now, he naturally leans forward just because he was on the edge of his seat for so long.
I'm glad you liked it and you didn't go, I waited forever for this?
That's the worst way to end that thing.
No, it was. I think people were very, very pleasantly surprised. So we'll definitely be looking forward to even more stuff. Hopefully, we don't have to wait another like 5 years for something more. But
yeah, we're actually, we had a meeting last week, and we've been talking about how we want to release the next record. And we're trying to figure out if we want to release a song every month for about 10 months, and then at the end of that 10 months, or however long we decide to do that, that's when we'd come out with a physical copy. And we've already recorded about 12 to 13 new songs.
Awesome.
So we're just trying to figure out what songs to put out and then re-record those, or if those recordings are good, how to release those.
One of the things that me and Taylor have been really getting into is podcasting, because we podcast the morning show. And so Taylor and I kind of swap different shows that we have been listening to. And we know you have a podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I've been in radio for a long time. I was in radio and worked for 3 different radio stations for about 4 years. And so I always kind of thought, man, it'd be cool to have a podcast and interview bands and talk about movies and whatever. And when I moved to Nashville, just one day, it kind of hit me whenever a friend of mine, Jeremy Spring, he has a podcast. He's in a band called The Band in Kansas.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to his and thinking, why haven't I executed that? So a little over a year and a half ago, I started doing the podcast where I interview bands. They tell me kind of what got them into music or the music industry, and if their life was kind of like a soundtrack, what would that soundtrack be? And it's called the Youngblood Podcast. It's on iTunes and Stitcher Radio and really anywhere online you find your podcast.
Well, once again, we are on the phone with Josh Clifton from Ravenhill. Dude, it has been a blast talking to you today. What's the best way folks can get in touch with you in Ravenhill?
RavenhillBand.com is our website. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I did hear, isn't August your 16th birthday?
Yeah, we're having a little party out in Louisville.
Oh, yeah, that's going on next weekend.
Your radio station can drive now.
Yes.
Do you guys have a drive time hour and everything?
Oh yeah. Yeah, Chris is on in the afternoons for us.
But you've been doing that without a legal license?
Don't tell anybody that, but yeah, that's what's been going on.
Well, just tell them during that drive time not to have those PowerFM naps.
There we go.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Joshua, thank you so much for getting in touch with us today.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me, and I'd love to come back. And maybe sometime when we're in the Dallas area, you guys come up to the show, and we'll have a good time. Meet in person.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's got to happen.